U.S. President Barack Obama announced the nomination of Robert McDonnell to lead the Department of Veterans Affairs. McDonnell is the former chief executive of Procter & Gamble. Many people say that the beleaguered Veterans Administration or Veterans Affairs Administration needs a business executive to fix its managerial challenges. The VA is in the midst of an explosive scandal involving the falsification of records and a culture that allowed this nation's veterans to wait indefinitely for treatment. Jesse Jane Duff is a retired U.S. Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant and a member of the Organizing Committee for Concerned Veterans of America, and she joins us from our Washington bureau. Hey, Jesse Jane, it's good to see you.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what's your reaction to this new appointment?
Well, at first I was quite surprised and quite pleased to see that the president has reached out to corporate America. You know, often people start thinking that a general is going to be the great person to lead this organization, but they have to understand this isn't a military operation. This is servicing veterans. And while he was at Procter & Gamble, he had a $84 billion revenue profits. He had 120,000 employees, and his entire focus was on service and productivity. He was even able to go into particular departments that weren't productive and remove employees that were not functional. So I find that this is maybe a relief that we're going to have somebody that goes in with a new eye and says, let's clean house.
Yeah, and it's important to note that he is a graduate of West Point and did serve in the military, yes. So he certainly has that sensibility. There are many, many issues that he is going to have to address right away. Sort of give me the priority list in your mind of what the 1, 2, and 3 that he needs to start right away on.
Well, the first thing that he has to be enabled with is to fire executives. You know, the Senate and the House have both had bills up that are allowing VA management accountability that will allow the senior level person who becomes a secretary to fire executives. Now, DOD has this authority and has used it in 2007 when there was a scandal at Walter Reed, but VA doesn't have this authority. So if you can't clean house and you can't get rid of the executives that have created this mess, this dysfunction and culture of corruption, he's basically just going to be sitting in a seat. The second thing, I want to make sure that we find out, ask him, how are you going to resolve the 340 days on average that a veteran waits just to receive their benefits? And what are you going to do about this culture of corruption where you've enabled these executives to receive bonuses? What is your theory on getting a bonus, and what do they have to do to receive it? So there's a long list I probably have, but those are the top 3.
You know, one of the big things that I think has got to be high on that list is winning back the trust. Trust of veterans, trust of the American public for the VA. How do you think he should go about doing that? Does it require these 3 things that you just said or something in addition?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The first thing he has to be able to do is to go in and remove these senior executive service employees. Mind you, there's over 300,000 employees at the VA. I'm not talking about all 300,000. I'm talking about the senior executives. These are 450 men and women who had all received above satisfactory performance ratings last year alone. All just last year when all of these scandals were at their peak. They've been rewarded for misbehavior. So if he can't fire them, he's basically locked in a culture that's not willing to change. So the second thing, though, is if we can't get veterans through a process to get their benefits, you can get food stamps in 30 days, but you can't get your benefits on average in this country for 340 days. Meanwhile, we've got veterans that are dying just to get appointments. So how is he going to resolve that? I want to hear his creative ideas. And I think a lot of the care needs to be provided by private caregivers. If they can start allowing veterans to get it, which is authorized by the VA, mind you, to use private health care systems for people who've waited over 30 days, the trust will get rebuilt. It's going to be a slow, painful process, and I admire anybody willing to take on this challenge, and I do hope that he succeeds.
Yeah, it's such a huge and cumbersome organization. Do you think that there needs to be, you talked about extensively about firing, you know, those at the top, those who have been ineffective or perhaps even corrupt, but should there be some restructuring of this organization? Perhaps it's just so big that it really can't function efficiently.
They really have to have pretty much a ground-up restructuring, and it's going to require a lot of people to be moved around and changed because a lot of people get stuck in their ways. Some of the reports that came out said that this is a corrosive culture, and one of the things that was mentioned is that a lack of resources. However, in the very same report, they indicated that the VA can't really, they know how to identify their budget, but they don't seem to put that money to good use. For example, one hospital hospital in Denver was slotted to cost $600 million, and it was supposed to be done in 2013. 5 years later, it has cost over $1 billion. Meanwhile, the VA was putting in solar panels and windmills at some of the VA hospitals at a cost of $420 million, and vets were dying in their beds waiting for care. So sometimes you have to look and say, they've got over $150 billion budget, second largest to DOD. Now, I want somebody who goes in there and doesn't say, I need more money. I want to see somebody who knows how to utilize the money more effectively, because often people assume it's a money problem, and it's not. It's a management problem.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. Jesse Jane Duff, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.